Crossbreeding programs can take a number of forms. In this section we will consider a few of the more commonly used crossbreeding systems. These are the terminal, rotational systems, and also we'll consider composite breeding in this section. There are, of course, many crossbreeding systems and they work in different situations. But whatever the system, a key to success is the planning that you carry out before you start the program. Alex, can you describe the classical terminal crossbreeding system?
The classic terminal crossbreeding system is where you use a sire such as a Charolais or a Limousin over in either a purebred cow where all progeny are sold. That purebred cow may be a British breed cow or she could be a tropical breed cow. And the other classical system is where that terminal sire is used over a crossbred cow, and in southern Australia that is very often a dairy cross British breed cow which has the complementarity of the British breed and the dairy breed, and then using a Charolais or a Limousin you maximise the carcass traits with complementarity. In addition to that, of course, you're going to get some hybrid vigour in that cow and some hybrid vigour when you bring the terminal sire in as well. But of course all progeny are sold by definition.
Do you have a simple explanation for this word complementarity?
A good definition of complementarity is where you use a specialist female, and that may be, for example, a Jersey Angus cross which is very fertile, reasonably small, low maintenance, and then you use a European sire for growth and carcass traits. So you are complementing that small efficient cow with the growth and carcass traits of a European breed.
There's a number of breeds you could talk about in regard to terminal sires, but within a breed, how would you select a terminal sire?
Well, the most common terminal sires used are Charolais and Limousin, but there are a number of other European breeds that can be used. Even Belgian Blues are used sometimes as terminal sires. The first and most important thing is that you're going to get a live calf, so that terminal sire must have a moderate birth weight. And then what you want to do is maximise the weight of the calf and of course whatever carcass attributes, and usually you're looking for high yielding cattle, high yielding sires.
Is there a position where you would put part of your herd to a terminal sire and another part of your herd to another breed bull?
Yeah, well, the obvious example there is where you're using the terminal sire over straight bred, British bred or tropical cows, and you want to retain some of that breed of cows, so you would put about half the herd to your terminal sire and sell all those progeny, and the other half you would put back to breed to your replacement heifers, which may be purebred replacement females or they may be crossbred.
So what age of a cow would you put to a terminal sire?
Well, you'd normally put your older cows to the terminal sire and mate your younger cows to produce your replacement females.
Would you say a 5-year-old cow might be the age at which you might put them to a terminal sire?
The minimum age to join to a terminal sire is, really the minimum age is probably once they've had one calf, so by the time they have second calf. But it's really an issue of how many females do you want to produce replacement females, and after that all the rest can go to the terminal sire.
Do crossbred bulls have a role as terminal sires?
We are seeing increasing use of crossbred bulls as terminal sires, and I think they have a good role to play. Two examples would be, first of all, where the breeder wanted to maintain maybe 3/4 British breed in their progeny, and they would maybe use a Charolais shorthorn bull over, say, Angus Hereford cows.
Are there any drawbacks in using crossbred bulls? The issue of EBVs and selection of bulls, for instance.
Well, at this stage most crossbreed bulls don't have EBVs available, but that's technically quite possible. And for example, the Limflex bulls that are on the Limousin register do have EBVs, and to make sure those EBVs are as good as possible, we import the actual Angus EBVs for the Angus animals used to produce those Limflex animals.
Do you see this as a trend going into other breeds? I'm talking here of multi-breed EBVs for crossbred bulls in terminal situations, for example.
I'm sure with time we will see more crossbred bulls that actually have EBVs available.
Are there any managerial challenges when you're going into a terminal crossbreeding system?
If you're in a complete terminal size system, of course you've got to buy in replacement females. In the southern enterprise of dairy cross beef cows, that's not an issue, they're readily available. If you are using a pure British breed, that's not difficult to buy replacement females. If you're trying to use a particular crossbred dam in your terminal size system, then it can be difficult to continually buy those particular crossbreds, let's say a Brahman Hereford or a Brahman Angus. Yeah.
Terminal systems can be very successful and they capitalise on many of the advantages in crossbreeding, but there is a challenge of providing replacement females for a terminal situation. Rotational systems, on the other hand, do supply replacement females, but they don't capitalise 100% on hybrid vigour. What is a rotational crossbreeding system?
A rotational crossbreeding system means that we use 2 or 3 breeds, and each breed is used at the same time in the herd, but in rotation. Now, rotation means that we produce calves by a particular breed, and the females are kept in the herd, but they are mated to the second breed. If I can use an example of a Hereford Angus, is probably the easiest. We'll have a Hereford sire, he produces some females, they are retained in the herd, but they are then mated to the Angus. Then likewise, the Angus sired females are mated to the Hereford. And so we are always producing crossbred females. And the big advantage, the 2 big advantages of this rotational system is that it replaces its own females, but it also retains hybrid vigour. One of the problems we have in trying to set up a stabilised system such as a composite is that we lose some of the hybrid vigour. This rotational crossbreeding system in a 2 breed retains at least 66% of the available hybrid vigour.
How common are 3 breed rotational systems?
3 breed rotation systems are very uncommon. In fact, 2 breed rotation systems are not common, but there are some real advantages. The 3 breed rotation is, one of the things about rotational system is that the breeds have to be reasonably complementary in terms of birth weight, etc., because as we described, the breeds are crossed over one another, so you can't have an extreme of any trait in one of the breeds in the rotation. So finding the 3 breeds that are complementary is a little more difficult than 2 breeds. And it's just managerially difficult because you've got to run 3 separate mating groups, etc. So it is difficult. And of course, you have to then be in the market to buy 3 breeds of bull. And, you know, a lot of commercial breeders have trouble researching 1 breed of bull, let alone knowing this full scope of 3 breeds.
Is there an option to introduce a terminal sire into a rotational system?
One of the alternatives is to have a 2 breed rotation and then take the older cows and put them into a terminal program. And that way you don't have to worry about the birth weight, for instance, or calving ease, because you only put the terminal sire over the older cows out of the rotation, and that works very nicely.
Continuous crossing programs can boost profitability, but in many cases the management problems force breeders to look for something simpler. Composites contain some of the advantages of crossbreeding, but once established can be managed the same as a straight breeding program. Composite breeding programs use crossbreeding to start the program, but become a straight breeding program once the breeds are stabilised. Can you explain the difference between a composite and a crossbred?
Well, a composite is when you're actually going to make a new breed by combining a number of breeds, two or more component breeds, to make a new blend for your production system, your environment, or ideas about a breed that is going to be better than your existing breed. A crossbreed is, as we've been talking about, a crossbreed is a combination of different breeds. The distinction is that in a composite situation, you start off crossbreeding, but as you advance the generations, you intermate crossbreds, eventually moving to a straight breeding situation, which is different to the crossbreeding where you continue to cross throughout.
What are some of the benefits of composites as you see for the Australian industry?
Well, the benefits of composites are people who are looking to take the base cattle they have today, the herd they have today, and they want to change it subtly for the markets or for the environment. And they can introduce new breeds and slowly develop it towards a new composite breed that meets the goals that they have and they want to produce for their production system.
What are some of the benefits of a composite system over a crossbred one?
When we talk about crossbreeding, there are set programs there. One of the issues about crossbreeding is the difficulty in managing different breeds on the same property. One of the benefits from a composite is you can blend a number of breeds together and end up with a straight breeding situation where you can run them as one mob once you get into the program.
What are some of the rules for using a composite?
When you're talking about composite, one of the realities is that you've got to be dealing with large numbers, because what you're doing is unique in producing a composite. It's very rarely that you get a lot of people working together and producing a composite. So we are looking at, if you're looking at a pure composite breeding program, we're looking at about a minimum of 500 cows that are recorded and are part of the composite development. And once you've decided to breed that, you've got to be very careful about inbreeding. And if you've got 500 cows, you must keep a large number of bulls going into the herd to minimize the emphasis on just the genes from a few bulls. So you've got to keep the size of the composite very big. And it's almost impossible for smaller producers to get involved. And for a smaller producer, it's probably best that if they're interested in composites, that they actually go and buy composites from someone who's got the scale to get round those inbreeding problems. The other thing about composites is that you've got to be very, very careful in your design, and you've got to be careful in the animals from the breeds that you introduce into the composite, and realistically, because a composite is going to take quite a while to produce, and we're talking about 12 to 20 years to produce a composite herd that's stable, you've got to, I think it's useful to get advice from someone who's got experience in this area to take you through all the steps.
What are good examples of composites in Australia or the world?
Historically, many of the breeds we know were developed as composites in the early days. When we look at the Senegatrudis, that's a combination of Shorthorn and Brahman to produce a breed that fitted for Texas and has been developed now throughout Australia. So in history, we've always had composites, but today what we've tended to see is in the north, where northern Australia, where we've got large herds, we've seen a number of larger companies, especially pastoral companies, who are looking to change subtly their marketing focus towards feedlotting systems, to new markets, new export markets. Those people have blended in other breeds to produce composites. And that's going successfully. It takes time, it's not easy, but there are some very good examples of larger herds who've got into composite breeding, and they're gaining good success. In the south, we don't tend to see as many people, firstly because there's not many people who are committed to composites who are going to be big enough in terms of that 500 cows. Also, there's in the south there has been some people who've actually imported composites from other countries. For instance, the stabilizer composite, some people have imported that from North America, and they continue to breed up and develop that, and they've got the ability to bring genetics in from other countries who are also breeding that particular composite. So we don't tend to see as many in the south as we do in northern Australia, where a number of people have successful composites.
We hear the term open composite. How would you define an open composite?
An open composite is one that's designed to get round to some extent these constraints of herd size. If you had an open composite, it means that you could, for instance, your composite is, let's say it was based on 250 cows, you could introduce sires that were bred in another herd of a similar makeup, but from different genetics. You could introduce them. Or you could have the basis of your composite, and you might buy camp composite bulls in from a person who's got a very similar type composite, and that allows you to refresh the genes. So an open composite is where you're looking for more flexibility because you don't have the scope in herd numbers to minimize inbreeding to the level you'd want to. Quite often what's happened, for instance, some people remake the Sanagatudis. So they go back to the shorthorn to take some of today's shorthorns and today's Brahman to try and create a new current day Sanagatudis which gives new bloodlines. That's one way of doing it, and other people actually go and create from the parental breeds the best bulls of today to try and bring in superior genetics into the composite.